So that was a shockingly good direct. There's multiple things I really want to talk about, actually. In hindsight, it all makes sense. There wasn't a February direct this year, and even if we're beyond the E3 era, June directs always are kind of supposed to be the best ones, I feel like. Yet somehow I had zero expectations, since this is the last year we're really expecting out of the Switch. But perhaps the low expectations made my mood afterwards even better. First off, Mario & Luigi is officially back, and I'm stoked for this one. I of course want to talk about Paper Mario 2 and what this means for the state of the RPG series in general, but Mario & Luigi deserves some of its own focused attention as well. At first I questioned how it's even possible, really. I had heard that Nintendo hired some Alpha Dream staff a while back, but I wasn't sure what it meant or if it was accurate. On first look, I'm not sure if this is the most ambitious looking game in the series, but so much of this looks reminiscent of what came before. The enemies look like Alpha Dream enemies. The new characters seem to indicate that they're going to try something new, and I didn't see Starlo anywhere, which I'm honestly happy about. And this game feels a lot more like Dream Team than Paper Jam when it comes to its personality, which is a bit of a relief to me as well. A large reason why I feel this way is because the main areas of the game seem to be completely unfamiliar, and in my opinion, that's Mario & Luigi at its best. The timing of this all is kind of odd though. There hasn't been an original Mario & Luigi title in over 8 years, and it's been nearly 5 since the last remake. So for a game series that used to come out every few years, it's clearly past time for a new entry, but we know that the reason is likely attached to Alpha Dream's bankruptcy. Yet still, now of all times is crazy for this to happen. Super Mario RPG will still be under a year old when this game releases, and the Thousand Year Door was even more recent than that. And when looking at the history of Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi, this is incredibly odd. The only time there's been a same-year release between the two series was with Paper Jam and Color Splash, but this came during a time period where Paper Mario was not an RPG game. And it's not hard to think about the survey that was kind of attached to Paper Mario that Nintendo recently conducted, asking about RPG elements, character designs, and the like. And this is because we've had like a decade of not really having traditional new Mario RPGs, and now we're getting so many at once. As someone who grew up with these being my favorite games to play, it really fills me with a lot of excitement. For a while, it seemed Nintendo believed that there could only be one Mario RPG series, but I always felt that Mario & Luigi has always been different enough from Paper Mario to clearly distinguish itself. Perhaps this stretch of all differing types of Mario RPGs is a little bit of a test run. The worst case scenario here is I get to buy 3 of them in the span of a year though, so regardless of what is to come and what it might all mean, this is a win to me. The next game I wanted to talk about was Mario Party. Now initially I was hoping to see a Superstars follow-up rather than a Super Mario Party follow-up, with more of an emphasis on classic GameCube content, but what we got looks promising. Initially I wanted to be skeptical, but the new boards that they showed off all look quite unique and fun. The character roster appears to be doubled as well, which is cool too. But perhaps a big reason for this is the 20-player mode online, however, so everybody gets to use a unique character. I admit that I'm kind of glad that this series is becoming an every third year thing. It's not the type of game I would buy every year at this point, and this not only gives me enough time to feel ready for a new one when they want to release them, but it also ensures that all my friends who buy the game are getting the same one as me, which actually matters in the online era. It also seems that motion-controlled minigames will be back, but they will be offline exclusive, and that's fine by me as well. All I want is to be able to use the Pro Controller and play online, and those boxes are checked. Now for a while, I wasn't really buying games in this series. It had been well over a decade actually. But now that online play is finally a staple, I'm really just happy with where this game series is now. Admittedly, I am a little bit sad at how much they seem to prioritize the N64 games and boards and nostalgia as opposed to the GameCube era, and that kind of got extended with the retro boards here, but overall, I think I'll be picking this one up still. The Zelda game is interesting. Since the last Direct ended with a remake, even if it's one that I defended quite a bit, I was kind of expecting to see another remake at the end this time. It's kind of just what I expect to see this late into a console's life. And before the Direct, I saw a bunch of Zelda fans asking for a bunch of HD remakes, like I saw Wind Waker HD as something that they wanted remade, and guys, like, I love the Wind Waker, but they've already remade it. And if that was going to happen, fine, but it wasn't something that I wanted to see as perhaps, a closing announcement. Echoes of Wisdom, however, was a welcome surprise for me in the middle. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure if this is my type of game. I think simultaneously I somehow like the idea of Zelda getting her own game where she's the protagonist, but also I kind of think that I would prefer just playing as Link. It almost feels like being happy for a character getting to Smash, knowing that you probably won't main them, but you like them in their own game, I guess. But I will also say it's still probably too early to judge. The gameplay looks more passive than what I prefer, but I imagine that the game is still going to be a hit, and the Zelda fanbase is easily big enough to give an idea like this a spin, and it might actually really be popular with fans, we'll have to see. They don't really make bad Zelda games anyway, but for me, I'll see how I'm feeling as we get closer to release. I do think I will be playing some Zelda soon for sure though, and that is going to be through the expansion pack. Now, I've played A Link to the Past enough times over at this point, but I never really got to experience the Four Swords multiplayer adventures. I played my GBA games on a DS growing up, which didn't allow, for multiplayer modes on those games. So I'm a little excited to finally get to play the multiplayer for the first time with some friends online. Also on the expansion pass is a game I have to give a shout out, that being Metroid Zero Mission. Now, Metroid is one of Nintendo's finest game series in my opinion, and I actually really recommend Zero Mission as a starting point if you have any interest whatsoever. I know Fusion's been on the expansion pack for a while, but I think it's definitely a bit harder and also strays away from the traditional Metroid experience a little bit more. Zero Mission, though, is one of the easier games in the series for sure, and it is also perhaps the quickest one to play all the way through. Everything the Metroid series does well, this game also does well, and it controls better than all the games in the series prior to Dread 2 in my opinion. I really cannot recommend this one enough if you haven't tried the series out but you're interested in it, because I think it just sets the stage for what this series is really well. The way the game is paced also, you can make pretty substantial progress just like an hour into it as well. Speaking of Metroidvanias though, I kinda liked what I saw out of Memories in Orbit. Obviously I don't have a strong opinion on this yet, but I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on this one, and perhaps I'll report back on it later. The art style is really nice, it seems to be pretty fast paced, and that's kind of my style of game these days. And one last silly comment, but they're really tempting me with Nintendo Switch Sports. Like, I'm not going to get it, but basketball was my favorite part of Wii Sports Resort, and the idea of playing online with a friend and 2-on-2 is really enticing, I can't lie. I know I can't justify a purchase of Nintendo Switch Sports 2 years after launch, and I know that basketball's not even going to be that deep or anything, but admittedly I am curious, and I imagine some of you guys have the game, so let me know what you guys think when you end up playing it. I need to know if I need to go to a friend's house to try it out or not. Maybe I'll pin your comment or something too, that could be funny. Now finally, yesterday, I came up with a theory for this direct. A theory that made complete sense to me, but one that I couldn't actually bring myself to believe. And maybe it's because Nintendo was never predictable or anything, but they were this time. They announced 7 years ago that Metroid Prime 4 was in development for the Switch, and if this game was truly going to release on Switch, we were getting into the now or never kind of territory when it comes to game announcements. Now originally they also promised Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. They delivered on that promise, technically. It's funny now because we see Breath of the Wild as a Switch game, but it would have been really scummy of them to not release it on the Wii U in a sense, because it was originally advertised to be just that. And I see the same thing going on here with Metroid Prime 4. They didn't give us a launch date for this game, and I think that was no mistake, because I believe that the game will come out as a launch title for the Switch successor, and also double up as being the last Nintendo Switch game too. Super Mario Bros. Wonder was recent. They clearly are going to need some more time for the next big Zelda project since Tears of the Kingdom just released on Switch. So Metroid Prime 4 makes a lot of sense in my mind. I also think that the Switch weirdly did a lot for Zelda's popularity at launch too. And I know Metroid's a little bit more niche than Zelda is, but perhaps a strong showing early in the life of the next Nintendo console could do a lot for the Metroid series, because it's not an issue of quality, it's a pretty universally acclaimed franchise. And with Retro Studios on board, it's hard to see that changing. And perhaps the attention that, Breath of the Wild got, if it can kind of replicate that on the next console, that could be a really big deal for the series. So it makes a lot of sense in my mind. Of course, I'm just excited to see footage of the game, really. I'm a pretty big Metroid fan, and they don't really have to sell me on this one, but I've only truly played the main series and Prime Trilogy as well. And this game obviously fits into that category, but what this trailer is actually starting to sell me on is the spin-off Prime games. Because after it was teased at the end of Prime 3, a character originating from Metroid Prime Hunters appears to be an antagonist in this game, and this character doesn't seem to have a super deep backstory, at least yet. So for a game series that's felt dormant for such a long time, it seems that there's always been, I guess, a plan For instance, Metroid Dread was always supposed to be the 5th main series game, and this was known back in the 2000s. The project seemed to just be dead until it suddenly wasn't one day, and it seems to be more of the same here. No amount of delays will ever change the plan they've always had for this series, and this is one of those things that makes you question how much of the future is really just hiding in plain sight when it comes to Metroid, and I think that's really cool. But anyways, that's all for today. There's nothing too deep to share here, but that's what initial thoughts and impressions are for after all. So let me know if there's anything you are looking forward to, and I'll be excited to read those, and I want to see all your thoughts. But anyways, I'll see you all next time, and thanks for watching.